Get going in just a couple minutes here as we've still got some people coming online. Thank you everybody for joining us. All right, so we are right at about 1:30. So I vote we get going. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Lori. I am a management analyst in the Rapid City office. I'm picking up sound from someone here. And today we are going to be doing our basic sales tax seminar. And I'm going to introduce our two speakers today, Sherry and Marla. They will be conducting the seminar today. And if you have any questions, please feel free to enter them into the chat at any time. And we will address those as we go along. So ladies, would you like to take it away?
Thanks,
Absolutely.
Lori. So I'm Sherry. I'll be your speaker today, and Marla will assist with answering questions. And like Lori said, feel free to put your questions in the chat, and we'll get those answered for you. Marla, did you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. My name is Marla Schmidt, and I am in the Yankton office, the Department of Revenue. And so I will kind of help her monitor the questions that come in through chat and then assist with any questions. And if something comes up that maybe we can't get an answer for right away, we will definitely document that and get your information so that we can get back to you after the seminar.
Awesome. Thanks, Marla. All right. So the first thing we're going to go over is just letting you know this presentation and the materials that accompany it do not constitute written advice to any specific taxpayer under South Dakota Codified Law 105927. Okay. All right. So who needs a tax license? In South Dakota, any person who sells, rents, or leases any kind of tangible personal property, refer to it as TPP, or transfers products electronically. Anyone who sells any kind of service, engages in realty improvement contracts, purchases products or services that may be subject to use tax, or has a business with a physical presence, which we call nexus, in the state of South Dakota. If you have more than one business location in South Dakota, you'd want to complete an application for each location. Okay. If you do have multiple locations, there may be instances where you could do consolidated filing for those. So you only have to have one login, and then you would file each return for those multiple locations. Same ownership, same type of license, has to have the same FEIN number, and minimum thresholds do not apply when there's a physical nexus. So what is nexus? Specifically in the world of sales tax, nexus refers to the connection a seller has with the state. It's a legal connection that empowers a state to demand collection and remittance of retail sales tax. Nexus can be established either physically or economically. So what's physical nexus? Physical nexus is created if a business does any one or more of these in South Dakota. So if the business has a location, permanent or temporary, has salesmen, representatives, truckers, peddlers, or canvassers that are residents or non-residents, if they make deliveries with their own vehicles, if they install or repair products, contracts for construction services, or uses a carrier which provides services in addition to deliveries such as setup. Now, what is economic nexus? Economic nexus is a threshold established by a state that can be a dollar and or transaction amount. When a business meets a state's threshold, the business must register, collect, and remit sales tax in that state. So with economic nexus, the business has no physical presence in South Dakota, and the seller's gross revenue from the sale of tangible personal property, any product transferred electronically, or services delivered into South Dakota exceed $100,000. So that's when somebody who is in another state would be required to have a sales tax license in South Dakota.
Sherry, we did have one question come through on the chat, and I think it has it's related to the statement where if there's more than one location for your business, you should have a separate license for each location. The question says, so exemption certificates are needed for each location versus at the corporate level.
So exemption certificates, I believe, would be needed for each location. Would that be correct, Marla?
I would say that would be the safest way to handle them. On the exemption certificates, you, as a purchaser, do put your specific license number on that exemption certificate. So I would just say probably to protect each business and license holder, it would be safe to get one for each location.
Does that answer that question for you? Okay, perfect.
Yep, we got the thumbs up.
Awesome. All right. So what types of licenses do we have in South Dakota? So we've got a sales tax license for businesses that sell, rent, or lease any kind of tangible personal property, products transferred electronically, or provide any kind of service. We also have a contractor's excise tax. This is going to be for businesses that provide realty improvements or construction services. A manufacturer's license would be for businesses that fabricate or manufacture items which are sold to other companies for resale and have a manufacturing facility in South Dakota. We've got use tax licenses. This is going to be for businesses that purchase TPP or that tangible personal property, products transferred electronically, or services on which South Dakota sales tax was not paid. And then we also have our wholesale license for businesses that sell all products to other businesses for resale. They will also, you'd also be able to report sales tax on contractors' excise tax. There wouldn't be a need for a separate sales tax license in most cases. Manufacturers will only be issued if they do not sell retail. If they sell retail, we'll issue the sales tax license most of the time. And then use tax examples. Sorry. Use tax examples would be for doctors and dentists, relief agencies. Those will be discussed during exemption portions of the presentation. And then wholesale will only be issued if no retail sales are made.
Sherry, we do have another question here from Brenda. It says, what is an example of TPP?
So an example of TPP would be a physical product. You go into the grocery store, you buy milk, you have a tangible personal product that you would pay sales tax on. Anything to add to that, Marla?
Not that I can think of off the top of my head. Brenda, does that help for an explanation? Yes. Okay.
Perfect. Okay. All right. So what we're going to talk about today is sales tax. So sales tax in South Dakota, the state sales tax rate is at 4.2%. Sales tax applies to the gross receipts of the retail sale, lease, or rental of the tangible personal property, products transferred electronically, services. Construction services are not subject to contractors' excise, or excuse me, construction services are subject to contractors' excise tax, not sales tax. So for this purpose, we're only going to talk about the sales tax. So tangible personal property, like we said, is something physical that you get from your seller or that you give to your purchaser. Products transferred electronically would be digital. And then services would be like your consulting services or physical therapy, massages, that type of thing. All right, so we talked about gross receipts, sales tax on gross receipts. Gross receipts is the total amount of money or other considerations received for products or services sold, leased, or rented. This can include taxable and non-taxable sales, special jurisdiction sales, which would be sales on Indian country or Native American reservations. We've got barters where somebody may barter if they do this for you, you do this for them. Delivery charges, so shipping and handling, crating, anything that has to do with shipping, reimbursable expenses, or lottery receipts. Gross receipts do not include credit allowed for products taken in trade. Fees or other interest for late charges on overdue accounts, no account or insufficient funds checks. Sale price of property returned by customers if the full sale price is refunded in cash or by credit, or discounts not reimbursed by a third party. Items not included in gross receipts when separately stated on the invoice or documentation provided to the purchaser would include any taxes legally imposed directly on the consumer. Sales tax is not included if itemized or documentation shows tax is included in sale price. Interest, financing, and carry-in charges from credit extended on the sale of products or services, or any fees or other interest imposed for late charges on overdue accounts, no account, or insufficient funds checks. The invoice has to have sales tax listed or say sales tax included on your invoice to your customer. A tax is legally imposed directly on the consumer if the imposition statute specifies the tax is imposed on the consumer. The seller is required to collect from or bill the consumer for the tax, or the tax is to be paid by or is due by the consumer. So don't deduct from your gross receipts. You don't deduct retailers' costs of the product or service sold. You don't deduct retailers' expenses, such as the cost of materials, labor, interest, losses, transportation to the retailer, or taxes imposed on the retailer. And you can't deduct charges by the retailer for services necessary to complete the sale, including delivery charges. Another thing, that would be included in your gross receipts, just to go back a little bit, would be if you charge a fee to your customer for using a credit card. Your POS system generally will charge a swipe fee. If you charge that to your customers, that fee also has to become part of your gross receipts, and then that is also subject to sales tax. Delivery charges. Delivery charges include transportation, shipping, postage, handling, crating, and packing. Delivery charges are subject to state sales tax and applicable municipal taxes when delivered to a customer in South Dakota. If a product is not taxable, the delivery and handling charges are not taxable. On delivery charges, if both taxable and non-taxable products are in the same shipment, taxes due on the portion of the delivery charge for the taxable products, determined by using a percentage of the sales price or weight of the taxable property compared to the total sales or total weight of all property in the shipment. An example of this would be Jones Furniture sells and delivers the following items to Fred's Furniture in Pierre: 2 sofas for resale and 1 office desk for use by the owner. So the 2 sofas are $1,000. The office desk used by the owner is $1,000. Jones bills Fred $2,000 plus $200 delivery. Fred's gave Jones an exemption certificate for the 2 sofas. Okay. So barter. A barter is an example of a product or service for another product or service. Tickets to a concert or exchange for radio ads. The ticket seller owes sales tax on the value of the service received in exchange for the tickets. The radio station does not owe sales tax on the value of the tickets because placing of ads on the radio is exempt. The value of the product or service received is subject to the state sales tax plus applicable municipal tax. Another example is a car repair shop repairs a bumper in exchange for lawn care services. The car repair shop owes sales tax on the value of the lawn care services. In addition, the lawn care service owes sales tax on the value of the bumper repair. Okay, returned merchandise. Credit for returned items may be deducted on the current return if the items were taxed and the tax was also refunded. So you would report that on line 3 on your return of the non-taxable sales. If the merchandise is reported in one reporting period and returned in the next reporting period, you can credit in non-taxable sales on the return during the reporting period the item is returned, instead of having to go back to the return it was purchased on. All right, discounts and coupons. So store coupons, the retailer is not reimbursed, so the discount is not subject to sales tax. The store will deduct the coupon price before tax applies. So a store in Pierre puts a coupon in the local paper for 50 cents off a roll of paper towels. So the paper towels are $3.50. The store coupon is 50 cents, so the subtotal of that sale is $3. And then you charge the 4.2% state sales tax, which is 13 cents, municipal tax on 6 cents, and that is on the $3. So at the end of that purchase, the customer owes a total of $3.19. All right. So I've mentioned municipal tax a few times here. So municipal tax is taxes by the cities. Cities may impose municipal sales and use tax of up to 2%. Municipal tax applies to all products and services subject to state sales or use tax. Municipal tax also applies when a product or service is used, stored, or consumed within a city that imposes a tax. Additional tax may be due if a product or service is used, stored, or consumed in a different city that imposes a higher rate of tax than what was previously paid. City tax guides are found on our website at dor.sd.gov. And then there's a tax match on the website as well, where you can enter the address of your specific customer, and it'll tell you the tax that's due at that specific address. Exemptions to municipal tax. So passenger transportation is subject to municipal tax only if the trip begins and ends in the same city. So this is like a Lyft or a taxi. Farm machinery and irrigation equipment for exclusive agricultural use is subject to state tax, but no municipal tax. And then receipts from amusement devices are subject to state tax and no municipal tax, like pinball machines, coin-operated pool tables, your claw machines. So those would only be subject to state tax. A farm machinery seller should have an exemption certificate completed to show exclusive agricultural use. And let's see. For the amusement machines, you need to obtain amusement device stickers from special taxes.
Sherry, we did have another question here come in, and it is in regard to the returns. Taylor asks, on the returns, we can report the negative sales in the current month versus filing an amended return. I believe the answer to that was yes.
Yep, I'd agree with that.
Yep.
Let me back up here to the example for you too.
Yes.
Yep, and then the credit would be available for use on, I mean, you could use it on that current return. You would just have to make a one-time payment so that you can deduct it out of the tax due on that specific return. Or you could use it for the future return as well. Refunds aren't usually sent out if you have an active license.
And usually you would just use that credit on that same return unless it's of a significant amount where it would put you into a negative scenario, in which case Yeah, then we'd probably make arrangements with you on how to handle that.
There is an additional question there. It says, it's from Chris. It says, so if we deliver a product to say Pier and charge Pier tax, then the customer returns some of it to Sioux Falls. What sales tax do you use for the return?
We're gonna go off of the Pier tax on that return because it's returning where you originally took possession of that item.
Okay. Does that answer your question, Chris and Taylor?
Let me go back to, let's see. We were here, right?
Yep. I think
Okay.
we're actually to the next one here. All right,
All
so
right,
municipal grocery receipts. Cities may impose an additional 1% municipal grocery receipts tax on any or all of the following types of sales. So alcoholic beverages, eating establishments, meaning prepared foods, lodging or ticket sales or admissions to places of amusement, athletic, and cultural events. It can be imposed on one or a combination of all. All right, so to report municipal taxes in the, you report municipal taxes in the city and special jurisdiction section on the state sales tax return using the code designated for that city. So after you've got lines 1 through 4 completed, you're going to go to the city tax, and you'll add each city that you had a sale in, and you'll have your city tax portion at the 2%. Or 1%, and then the additional municipal gross receipts tax would also be in that city section. So you wouldn't combine taxes or report all tax under one code. There's 2 different codes. The reason for the codes, the municipal tax and the municipal gross receipts tax can only be used for certain things by the cities per South Dakota law. Use tax is only subject to generate purchases of supplies, equipment, employment, meals, etc. Municipal gross receipts tax includes alcoholic beverages, prepared meals, and does not include use tax and general merchandise. So if you have use tax, it's only subject to state and city tax. All right, tourism tax. So tourism tax is an additional 1.5% tax that applies to gross receipts of hotels and place of lodging, campgrounds, motor vehicle rentals, recreational services, spectator events, visitor attractions, and visitor-intensive businesses, where 50% or more of the total annual gross receipts from the sale of tangible personal property during June, July, August, and September. There is a specific product and services, for listing of a specific product and services subject to tourism tax, you can review the tourism tax fact. Tourism tax does not apply to restaurants in hotels or campgrounds. All right, so to report tourism tax, again, you're going to do this in the city and special jurisdiction sections on the state sales tax return using code 700-1. If you're filing electronically, the tourism tax is actually on its own page. The city of Sioux Falls does impose an additional 1% tax on lodging. So in addition to that municipal gross receipts tax, Sioux Falls has an additional 1% lodging tax. This gets reported on the return as code 800-1, and it's included in the total.
Okay, we did have a question here from Barb about the tourism tax. It asks, tourism tax would be applied to the sale of items from a museum gift shop?
I would say yes on that.
I agree.
Lori, did you say I agree?
I do.
Okay. You're welcome. Okay.
Okay. So I discussed this earlier, but you can find a local tax rates to a specific address on our website at dor.sd.gov. You'd click on online services and then sales tax rate lookup. Using the municipal tax information bulletin, which is also found on our website under taxes, business taxes, publications, and then municipal tax. Applying sales tax rate based upon zip code alone does not work. Zip code boundaries cross over multiple limit boundaries. So an address may not be within the municipal boundary that it is associated with a particular zip code. Therefore, sales made to this address are not subject to municipal tax. So if you're in a rural area, it would not be subject to municipal tax. Will always show general, this website will always show general rate and will not reflect MGRT, which is the municipal gross receipts tax or tourism. And we'll have a statement at the bottom of the page saying if MGRT applies, but will make no statement about special taxes such as tourism or motor vehicle taxes. Any questions on that? All right, so now we've got use tax. Use tax applies to all products and services used for or consumed in South Dakota if South Dakota sales tax has not been paid. So use tax is the same rate as the sales tax rate plus applicable municipal tax. So the state tax rate and the municipal tax. You report and pay on the return for the month in which you are invoiced. You receive the product or service, or you remove the item from tax unpaid inventory for use. Example, if you sell products in your business, and I'm just going to use a salon. So they sell shampoo and conditioners. They can purchase that for resale. And if they take any of that where they didn't pay sales tax when they purchased it for resale, they take it off the shelf and use it on their customers. At that time, they're going to owe use tax on the cost of those, the shampoo or conditioner, because they didn't pay sales tax when they purchased it initially. Use tax would be calculated on the purchase price of products or services, including freight and handling charges. And if the product purchased is exempt from sales tax, it would also exempt the use tax.
I do have a couple of questions that have come in. We're back to the credits. The question from Shelby is, if I amend several returns and it creates a credit and the company only has $0 returns going forward, will a refund be made since that credit will never be used?
So generally, as long as the license is active, a refund wouldn't be sent out. I think that's a case where you could reach out to an agent and see if that's something that could be requested.
Yeah, Shelby, it's actually in statute somewhere that if you can't use that credit within a 2-year period, we can refund it to you. So in the scenario where you're explaining there'd be zero tax going forward, we could arrange for a refund, yes.
The next question then is, how do we account for sales tax for a city not listed on the list or the municipal tax guide? When we try to add them, such as Dakota Dunes, it does not appear. Do we allocate it to a different city?
Great question. So if the city doesn't impose a city sales tax, then they won't be in that list. I know
And then,
Dakota Dunes doesn't, Chester does not.
so
What were
you
you
would
saying,
not
Marla?
then, correct, I was just going to say they would not in that instance charge a city tax. It would just be the state tax of 4.2%.
Agreed. If you already charged a city tax to your Dakota Dunes customer, the ideal thing to do would be to refund it back to them. You have to either pay it into the state or pay it back to the customer. We do have a miscellaneous code that you could put it into, or a code that, like Dakota Dunes where they have no city tax, but the ideal thing would be to refund it back to your customer.
And then there's another question here from Shelby. It asks, do we owe use tax on membership dues?
What do you think on that, Marla?
I would probably need a little bit more information. Shelby, I would need to know what the membership dues are for. What, is it for a gym? Is it for an art association? It could depend on what the membership dues are for. Lori?
I agree. Yeah, more information would be needed to know because there are some exempt membership dues. Be part of a membership organization, like a professional organization like that, yeah, that would be exempt from sales tax in South Dakota.
Okay, she did reply. Shelby says that we pay several different types of membership dues to be a part of concrete associations, etc.
Yep, that type of membership would be exempt from sales tax in South Dakota.
Okay, and then we have a few more here. Michaela asked, if you buy a building from someone and it comes with all of the items in it, are all of those items and the building subject to use tax? Sherry, I would think too, we need a little bit more information on that question. It's Michaela, I believe, who submitted that question.
Mm-hmm.
We could be getting into some of the construction side of things where that could be applicable to contractors' excise tax.
Yeah.
Michaela, could we get back to you on that? She said, yes, thank you. The next question is from Dana. It asks if there is a comprehensive list of what services are taxable in the state of South Dakota.
I mean, there's not a list per se, but there is, based on different types of businesses, we have tax facts that talk about um, the services that are taxable, if they're exempt from sales tax. It just depends on what type of business.
Yeah, it's almost easier to go into what the types of exemptions are because in South Dakota, we tax it unless there's a specific exemption that exists. So my response would be comprehensive list of every service that's taxable. No, we don't have that. It would be more accurate to say we have a list of exemptions of what would not be.
And I do have a link available for the list of exemptions, and I could post that here in the chat. And that would be for you, Dana. Here, I'll go ahead and paste that now. Okay, and then I have one additional question. If a transaction is only related to the transfer of money, no product or service, how is use tax applied? Tax on the principal or interest? And that's from Kelly. And I would
Actually, that moves over into our bank franchise area. So Kelly, that might be something we have to follow up with you after the presentation. Sorry to keep interrupting you, Marla.
no, that's okay. I was heading that direction. So. Okay, I think that's all the questions for now. So Sherry, you can continue.
Okay, thank you. All right, so examples of items often assessed in use tax include computers, donations, farm equipment, leases, equipment leases, demonstration and sample items, office supplies, manufacturing equipment, tools, snow removal services, promotional gifts, software and support, meals furnished for employees, or equipment brought into South Dakota from another state. Sorry, my computer's glitching here a little bit. All right, so situations in which South Dakota sales tax may not have been paid and use taxes due include items purchased from an out-of-state vendor or mail order companies, items taken from inventory for your business or personal use, items purchased over the internet, purchase made in another state and brought into South Dakota and product was not taxed or was taxed at a lower rate than in South Dakota. Rental receipts on equipment brought in from another state, purchase of promotional items, or supplies used or consumed in providing a service. All right. If you have purchased product or service out of state, if you have the item delivered to your South Dakota address and have not paid the South Dakota sales and municipal tax, you would owe use tax on any you would owe use tax and any municipal tax to South Dakota. If you pick up the product in another state and the retailer is legally required to collect that state's sales tax, you will not owe South Dakota sales or municipal tax if that state's sales tax rate is the same or more than South Dakota tax. If their state's tax is less than South Dakota state and municipal tax, you would need to pay the difference to South Dakota. And then credit is allowed for sales or use tax legally due and paid to another state against the sales or use tax due South Dakota if the other state provides for like credit. All right, so materials taken from inventory. So items taken from inventory are subject to state and applicable municipal use tax unless they are taken from the inventory as a display or demonstration item on a temporary basis and then returned to inventory to be sold. If a store withdraws items from inventory for personal use or other commercial use tax is due when the item is taken from inventory. And if the item is sold at a later date, sales tax will be due on the item with no deduction for the use tax paid. So credit for sales or use tax legally due and paid in another state is allowed. If equipment less than 7 years old purchased for use in another state and brought into South Dakota is subject to state use tax plus applicable municipal tax on the fair market value of the equipment. Or if equipment age is determined by the equipment's manufacture date, if documented, or data purchased by the person bringing the equipment into South Dakota. All right, sales and municipal tax apply where customer receives product or service. So if products picked up at a seller's location, the state sales tax rate would apply along with municipal tax or city tax at seller's location. If products are delivered, it'd be the state sales tax rate and municipal or city tax where the product is delivered. If it's delivered, but delivery address is unknown, then sales and municipal tax or sales and city tax would be based on customer's address. And then if products are transferred electronically, no delivery or customer address on file, then state sales tax and city tax based on the seller's address. Let's see, it looks like we have a question here.
Yeah, we do. This is from Taylor. And it says in determining sales tax, I'm not sure if that's the right word, if it's something that's misspelled, I'm sorry. In determining sales tax due commercial terms, i.e. when or where title transfers impact the location. I'm not understanding the question, Taylor. Lori or Sherry?
Well, in South Dakota, we're going to go with what we call point of possession. So we're looking to where the customer takes possession of the item. So where title transfers, we tend to look more to delivery location, I guess, if that answers your. Oh, when using a third-party carrier. Yeah, it's still going to be where it's delivered to the customer. Where they first took possession of it.
Does that answer your question, Taylor?
Where that just repeating.
Oh, no.
Oh, okay. Third base of water bracket.
Well, I guess it does make a difference of if you, the seller, hired the third-party carrier, possession is going to be determined of where it was dropped off to the customer, whereas if the customer hired the third-party carrier, it could technically be they took possession of it at the store. So yes, I guess that could make a difference then, yes. So it's yes, where did that customer first actually get it into their possession? And if they hired the carrier, that's where they hire or got possession of it. Now that I understand the question.
Okay. Okay, so sales and municipal tax apply where customer receives product or service. So personal care services would be state sales and municipal or city tax at location services performed.
Don't refer to them as exemption numbers.
Services performed on products, so it'd be subject to state sales tax and city tax at location product delivered to the customer. Under lease or rental of products, it'd be state sales tax and city tax where customer receives product. If product is moved to another location, sales tax on future payments applies to that location. And then delivery to location outside of South Dakota, no South Dakota sales tax or city tax would be imposed.
Kind of the biggest thing. That number that you said. That vendor can also departments. If I want to make sure.
Go to there we go. So an example invoice, the customer purchases a computer software. The seller travels to the customer's location in Rapid City to install the software. So the location is invoiced for $3,000 in software, $1,500 installation, lodging and meals of $500 for a total sale of $5,000 at and then it's taxed at 6.2%, which again is based on the customer's address. So that's $310 in sales tax. So a total invoice of $5,310 would be due. All right, exemptions. So 3 reasons a sale may be exempt from sales or use tax would be if a product or service is specifically exempt, a purchaser is exempt, or a product or service is used for an exempt purpose. If you do not receive a properly completed exemption certificate, you would need to collect sales tax. And this is just
that happens. That's not the end of the world. Right?
I'm
Sorry
just
about
gonna
that.
make a note here. Yeah, I'm sorry, but someone, if you could all put your mute buttons on, please. We're picking up some background discussions. Thank you.
It's not going to. It shouldn't prevent anything, but they are right in saying that you should provide them.
Okay, so this is just an example of what a certificate of exemption looks like.
Yeah, I think that's
So you
something
know,
that we
if you're receiving one from a customer, you're going to have their purchaser's name. They may have a sales tax license themselves. And then they need to select the reason that they're exempt from sales tax.
Okay, so it looks like. I just checked it. And I'm sorry, what did you say your first name was? I think it was those.
Okay, I'm sorry for the background noise here.
Oh, gotcha. Is it mine?
So required information would be the purchaser's name and address, ID number, if required by state where the sale is sourced, type of business reason, or type of business reason for exemption, signature, if a paper copy, signature is not required if it's electronic. You can get exemptions certificates on the website at dor.sd.gov or by calling 800-829-9188. All right, so business with permit numbers containing use tax or contractor's excise tax cannot buy products or services for resale. Exemption certificates are used to claim exemption for products or services. You'd want to keep the exemption certificate in your records to document exempt transactions from the last 3 years. Exemption certificates do not expire unless the information on the certificate changes, but we recommend updating exemption certificates annually. And if purchasers are from a state that does not issue sales tax permits, they may use their federal employee identification number, driver's license number, or a state issued ID number on the exemption certificate. If you get an exemption certificate in 2010 and do not get a new one and still sell to the customer in 2014, you need to keep that certificate as documentation. If you keep it in your records for 3 years, then toss it. You no longer have documentation to support that the exempt transactions in 2014. Let's see. Examples of exempt products or services would include agricultural products, educational services, food stamps or WIC, forestry services, healthcare services, livestock, motor fuel, motor vehicles, prescription drugs, social services, travel agent services, trucking, and water for domestic use. Livestock does not include pets. All right, exempt entities include governments, including South Dakota Public Schools, municipal or volunteer fire or ambulance departments, tribal governments, nonprofit hospitals, religious educational institutions, nonprofit accredited private education institutions, nonprofit charitable relief agencies recognized by the federal government and the South Dakota Department of Revenue, and must be registered with the South Dakota Department of Revenue.
There is another question here. It's from Kayla, and it says, what about advertisement sales, selling ad spaces in a newspaper?
So with advertisement, the ad space, if you're creating and placing it, would be exempt.
That is correct. If you're creating the ad and placing the ad in the media for that customer, it would be a non-taxable sale.
Just on the exempt entities also, churches are not exempt in South Dakota. Okay. So employees or representatives of an exempt entity must pay sales and municipal tax if they use a personal check or personal credit card. Lodging paid directly from an exempt entity is exempt from sales and municipal tax. And government entities must provide an exemption certificate, or the vendor must keep documentation to show the purchase was paid from government funds in order for it to be exempt. Documentation may include a purchase order or check stub. And then when a purchase is made with a government credit card, an imprint or copy of the credit card must be kept as documentation. Okay, exempt transactions include sale for resale, drop shipments or out of state, agriculture, certain repair parts, and direct pay permit. So sales for resale. A business can purchase items exempt from sales tax if they sell, rent, or lease those items as a normal course of their business. Items can be purchased for resale if they become part of the final product. And service providers must pay sales tax on all products and services they purchase unless there is a specific exemption. Manufacturers. So raw materials that become part of the items sold can be purchased tax exempt as items for resale. Containers can be purchased without sales or use tax. Examples of containers would be labels, packing cases, wrapping paper, tape, bottles, or bags.
I do have another question here from Kelly. It says, if we reimburse employees or consultants for expenses, do we apply use tax to the whole reimbursement except for mileage? That one gets into a little bit more detail. There are some different taxing and sourcing rules that apply to consultants and reimbursable expenses. So Kelly, would we maybe be able to get back to you on that one as well with a little bit more detail for you? Great, thank you.
All right. So manufacturers, examples of non-taxable would be component parts, labels, welding wire or rods, pallets for manufacturing, containers, raw materials, component services, and prescription safety glasses. Taxable items would be operating expenses, sandpaper, oxygen or acetylene, electricity, prototypes, mold, consumable services, repair, or safety glasses. Okay, services purchased as part of the manufacturing process may be purchased for resale. Example would be welding or painting. Two criteria for purchasing services for resale would be the purchaser of service does not use the service in any manner, and the service is delivered or resold with no alteration. So an example of this, a manufacturer hires a painting service to paint a lawnmower parts. The manufacturer does not use the service. The service is resold to the customer without alteration. The manufacturer may purchase the painting service for resale and must provide the painting service with an exemption certificate. Okay. Three criteria for service providers to purchase service for resale. It must be purchased for or on behalf of a current customer. Purchaser of service does not use any service in any manner, and service is delivered or resold with no alteration or change. So service providers can purchase another service for resale if the service is delivered to the specific customer in conjunction with the service contracted to be provided to the customer. Examples of this. So a software company hires a programmer to customize a program for a specific client. The sale meets the three criteria and the service can be purchased for resale. Another example would be a computer software company hires a programmer to develop a new program. The software company then copies and markets this program to the public. This service is taxable because the programmer's services are being used by the software company. Okay. Retailers, containers may be purchased exempt from sales tax if the retailer furnishes the container free of charge and the container holds products sold to the customer. Containers the retailer reuses cannot be purchased for resale. Examples of containers include boxes, bags, food wrappers, or cups. Okay. Agricultural equipment, when used primarily for agricultural purposes, would be subject to state sales tax, but no municipal tax. Sale of farm machinery, attachment units, and irrigation equipment. Exemption from sales and use tax, any sale of parts or repairs on farm machinery or attachment units, including irrigation equipment. Maintenance items and maintenance services when used on farm machinery or irrigation equipment. Seeds sold in quantities of 25 pounds or more. commercial fertilizers sold in quantities of 500 pounds or more, pesticides, motor fuel, and electricity used to power irrigation pumps. All right, tribal tax collection agreements.
Oh, we do have another question here. It's from Tammy. It says, if a tractor is sold at auction, is that tractor subject to sales tax? And Lori replied and said yes. There are some, again, some different requirements for auctioneers as they conduct their auctions. And so yes, if you are an auctioneer and have certain questions, you can always reach out. But in that instance, yes, that would be subject to tax.
Okay, so tribal tax collection agreements. We've got 5 tribal governments with sales, use, tourism, and contractors excise tax agreements. They are Standing Rock, Rosebud, Cheyenne River, Ogallala, and Crow Creek. 2 tribal governments that have limited tax collection agreements for use and contractors excise tax are Yankton Sioux and Sisseton Wahpeton. Tribes with no collection agreements are Flandreau and Lower Brule. And tribal revenue department has jurisdiction over licenses owned and operated by enrolled members of their own tribe. The state Department of Revenue handles all other licenses. Tribes with limited tax agreements are Yankton Sioux and Sisseton Wahpeton. No contractors excise tax, sales, or use tax agreements with Flandreau or Lower Brule. Tribes may impose tribal tax in addition to sales tax in the form of a TECRO or TERO tax. Okay. Sales of products or services delivered in Indian country without a sales tax collection agreement are subject to the state sales tax. Sales by an enrolled tribal member on a non-agreement Indian country controlled by that member's tribes are not subject to state sales tax. Enrolled tribal members, retailers may be required to collect the state use tax on sales made to non-members of the tribe and send these funds to the state. Sales of Indian country are taxable at state sales and applicable city tax. Okay. Reporting special jurisdiction tax. All sales and use tax is reported on the state sales tax return. You're going to include all sales on line 1 for gross sales, and then deduct sales to tribal governments or non-taxable sales for any tribe on line 3 for non-taxable sales, and then deduct taxable sales made with the special jurisdictions. Again, Indian country where the tribe has a tax collection agreement on line 4 for special jurisdiction sales. Under city and special jurisdiction calculation detail, you'd report taxable sales made within special jurisdictions using the code assigned to that jurisdiction. The code will include the name of the tribe that controls the Indian country where the sale was made. Report taxable sales subject to city tax under the appropriate city name and code. Okay. So an example is $1,000 sales delivered to Mission, South Dakota, which is Rosebud special jurisdiction. So $500 sale to Rosebud tribe is exempt. And then $5,000 sale delivered to Pierre. So the total gross sales is 6,500. So the total of those sales, no use tax, $500 non-taxable to the Rosebud Sioux Tribe because it's exempt, and then 1,000 special jurisdiction sales delivered to Mission, South Dakota. So lines 1 through 4, when it gets calculated, it's going to take out 6,500 minus the 500 minus the 1,000. So total state sales tax is going to be at 5,000 times the 4.2%. And then in the city section, you're going to type Mission for the municipal sales tax at the $1,000. The Rosebud Sioux Tribe, so that they get their portion of the taxes to the tribes at the $1,000, and then Pierre municipal sales tax for the $5,000 sale delivered to them. So once that's calculated, it'll calculate that tax for each special jurisdiction. All right, 911 emergency surcharge. So 911 emergency surcharge is $2 per service user line, providers collect and remit. So 911 prepaid wireless emergency surcharge, there's 2%, owes 2% of gross retail sales of prepaid wireless services. Retailers and providers that sell prepaid wireless service, prepaid wireless airtime cards, and prepaid wireless plans and minutes. They must register with the Department of Revenue. Surcharge is reported and remitted to a Department of Revenue electronically using ePath. And providers and sellers may keep administrative fee of 2% or $25, whichever is greater, not to exceed surcharge collected each month. Returns and payments must be filed and paid timely by electrical or electronic means. And for more information on that, you can look at the South Dakota Codified Law 35-45 for more information. There is also a tax fact. Okay. All right, accounting methods. So we've got accrual accounting method where tax is paid on all sales during the reporting period, even if no payment has been received. So essentially, when you bill your customer, you would report the sales. Conditional sale, when payments for principal sum extend over a period longer than 60 days from the date of the sale, only the payment received during each reporting period is subject to sales tax. Bad debts may take credit of bad debt during reporting period in which you write bad debt off as uncollectible in your books and records or books and records, and it is eligible to be deducted for federal income tax purposes. Can only take off if using accrual accounting method. And then cash accounting method is where you report the gross receipts and pay taxes as you receive payments. No bad debts allowed. If you wanted to change your accounting method, you would need to request that in writing to the Department of Revenue. All right. Filing and paying returns. You would file a tax return each reporting period, even if no business is conducted or income received. So as long as your license is active, you need to file the returns. The filing schedule is determined when the license is issued and can be monthly, bi-monthly, quarterly, semi-annual, and then seasonal or on a customized basis. All right, so the benefits of EPATH, and the link is showing there, South Dakota or sd.gov/EPATH. It's available 24/7, multiple payment options, allows additional user access to all or specific accounts, automatically save for later access and editing before sending. You can change password, security questions, and email address at any time. You can use bank accounts for one-time payment or save account information for future use. One EPATH account for same owner license with the same FEIN or Federal Employee Identification Number. System does all the calculations for you once you've entered the information. You can amend returns online. You can review file and pay history. You can also view pending payments and make changes to payments up to 2 business days prior to settlement date. All right, and you can now pay with a credit card, Visa, MasterCard, or Discover. There is a 2.45% convenience fee charge for each credit card payment. Record keeping requirements. So gross receipts, you want to keep sales and billing invoices, a general ledger, cash register tapes, bank deposit slips and statements, contracts, pricing and portion size information, menu pricing, deductions, any resale certificates, proof of exemption, bills of lading or proof of delivery, credit memos or bad debts. For use tax, you want to keep purchase invoices, check registers, fixed asset schedule, inventory withdrawals, depreciation schedule. Any business subject to sales or use tax or contractor's excise tax in the state must keep all business records for at least 3 years. Machine sensible records are those records that are generated and maintained in an electronic format. State regulation requires machine sensible records to be available to the auditor upon request. So rule of thumb is, 3 years plus the current year. All right, additional documentation to keep would be tax returns, schedules or working papers issued in connection with preparation of tax return, copies of supporting information, worksheets, schedules, etc., showing how sales and use tax amounts are determined. All right, and you can contact the Department of Revenue in several different ways. We try to be accessible as we can. You can call our toll-free number at 1-800-829-9188. You can email biztax or bustax@state.sd.us. You can visit our website at dor.sd.gov. You can visit or call your local Department of Revenue office. We've got a chat function available on our website at the dor.sd.gov. You chat with an agent just like myself, so you're getting real answers real time. That's available during business hours, Monday through Friday from 8 to 5. You can also click on publications under the forums or resource tab on our website for tax facts and other information. All right, and then our Department of Revenue field offices are throughout the state. We've got Aberdeen, Mitchell, Pierre, Rapid City, Sioux Falls, Watertown, and Yankton.
Can I interrupt you here? As of this week, we no longer have Watertown and Mitchell.
Oh, okay. I thought that was at the end of the month. I apologize.
Yeah, no, they're gone.
Okay, so in that case, we've got Aberdeen, Pierre, Rapid City, Sioux Falls, and Yankton. All right. Looks like we are to the end with questions.
Okay, we do have a question here from Barb. If I purchase inventory from another location, such as Menards, and paid tax, how do I report this, as I am having to charge tax when I sell the product to the customer?
So if you're purchasing inventory for your customer, you could give your supplier an exemption certificate, and then they don't charge you sales tax when you purchase that inventory. So then when you sell it to your customer, you would be collecting and remitting the sales tax from that sale.
Oh, and I'm sorry, I did skip one. There is a question here. Is it possible to choose to file the sales tax returns by either accrual or cash method? Is it dependent on how the federal tax return is filed? I do believe that you can choose the type of accounting method that you want to use at the time that you apply. And then if you're interested in changing that down the road, you would need to actually request that from us in writing. And as far as your federal return is concerned, you know, I don't know that we can provide you any direction on that. That would be probably a question for your accountant or your bookkeeper.
Yeah, but I don't believe there's any requirement that your federal return and your South Dakota state return have to be the same. I'm not aware of anything anyway.
And then we have another question here. When is the Sioux Falls office moving?
Great question. We moved today. So we'll be at the new building starting tomorrow. And that
And then
address is 1501 South Highline Avenue, Suite 3B on Sioux Falls.
And then we have a question here from Brenda. Will my South Dakota exemption certificate work in Minnesota or Iowa?
Yes. As we have reciprocity with those states.
Yes, and South Dakota, Iowa, and Minnesota are all part of the streamlined sales tax program, which means we all accept this uniform streamlined sales tax exemption certificate. So should be good in all three states, yes. Like if you buy in another state. Yeah, your South Dakota sales tax number is still going to be good in other states.
It's perfect for.
And the streamlined sales tax exemption is good in at least 20 other states. So the odds are fairly good that it'll be good in your other state as well. Yes. But you'd be able to use that South Dakota sales tax license number in any of the states to buy for resale. Yes.
I talked about for you.
Okay, so we have another question here from Shayla. So you must have an exemption certificate before the purchase. What if you already purchased something and realized that it could have qualified for an exemption?
I think that's something, would you be able to talk with the seller or supplier to see if they would accept it after the fact?
Correct.
But-
And possibly issue you a refund.
Mhm.
I have made that recommendation as well, to see if they could take the exemption certificate back to them and request a refund. I'm sure that would be like a case by case basis depending on the supplier. Okay, and I have another question here from Brenda. I don't have an exemption certificate yet, but have been buying at thrift stores all over and have paid tax.
Do you have, so you don't have a sales tax license yet, Brenda? What do you think, Marla?
Yeah, if you do not have an active sales tax license, you are not able to make purchases with an exemption certificate. You would need to get licensed to be able to use that exemption certificate.
Yes, and unfortunately, you can't take a deduction for that tax that you previously paid. Your option would be to try to go back to the vendor and try to get a credit on it. So Taylor, can I come back to your question about shipping and commercial terms?
Yes.
I had a chance to look it up, and that is I was leading you down the wrong path there. It actually doesn't matter. We're going to go with where that customer takes possession. So it's where it's delivered
Yeah.
to that customer. That my apologies for getting that wrong initially. It was something that
Trash.
changed in recent years, and I had to refresh my memory.
Trash out and run out.
Awesome. Thank you, Lori. All right, any other questions?
If there's anyone on the line who's looking for a CEP or continuing education credit today, if you could drop that in the chat so I can make sure you get that certificate, that would be appreciated. Wonderful, thank you. We are also teaching our contractors excise tax portion of this seminar on Thursday. So if you have not already and are interested in signing up for that, you think you should all have my email. You can drop me a line or throw it in the chat here, and I will make sure you're registered for that as well.
We do have one additional question here. I see from Kim. She's asking if VFW and VFW auxiliaries are tax exempt.
It was weird.
They do not have a blanket exemption, no. It is possible that some of them could be running a program that would qualify as a relief agency, but they would need to apply for and get that status, but they are not just exempt in and of themselves.
Does that help, Kim?
Tammy, we do
No,
not
it's
have a
nice.
webinar just for attorneys yet. But that is probably a good topic that we could explore for the future. I would also encourage you just to reach out to one of our offices. One of us could just sit down and online or talk some things through with you.